And we turn now to the election season, which is in full swing. We are 90 days away and counting now until the general election. And as it plays out, we're seeing repeats of the same partisan talking points, attack ads that are the norm with one party criticizing the other. But it seems what we aren't seeing are real proposals for changes in policy. And Americans are taking notice, or at least just disillusioned by it all. Here's a recent poll from the Pew Research Center. As you can see, 6 in 10 Americans say the 2012 election has been too long and too dull. Other words to describe the campaign include exhausting and annoying. Well, there's a sharp contrast to the presidential candidate reality show that was playing out just 5 months ago. Who can forget these memorable moments that kept America glued to their TV screens?
I'm ready for the gotcha questions, and they are already starting to come. And when they ask me who's the president of you, Becky, Stan, I'm going to say, you know, I don't know. Do you know?
And one thing I would say is when you take the 999 plan and you turn it upside down, I think the devil's in the details.
I think it's a catchy phrase. In fact, I thought it was the price of a pizza when I first heard it.
What about global warming?
There is no such thing as global warming.
We will have the first permanent base on the moon, and it will be American.
So again, for the next 3 months, we'll see the announcement for the Republican vice presidential candidate made. Both the Republican and Democratic national conventions, debates, and TV screens, especially in the battleground states, cluttered with political ads. Joining us now to discuss this and more, Erica Payne. She is the founder of the Agenda Project. Erica, welcome. So it's interesting to see the contrast here. Last election, there seemed to be this sense of hope and change. You know, that was President Obama's slogan. But now many people seem to be disenchanted with the way things have played out. I mean, why haven't the main candidates been able to garner this kind of emotional response that we've seen in the past?
Well, I mean, in the first place, you know, the last election you had Obama and Hillary Clinton kicking us off. And I think a lot of the energy was from those two folks. And they certainly, both of them have a tremendous amount of charisma, a tremendous amount of star power. And so that's, you know, that's easily going to carry you into a general election. And what you're looking at now with the economy is just, you know, a recovery is a very slow slog. When your car has been dropped into a ditch and you've got to try to pull it out, it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that can be reduced to sound bites. And so it's just going to be a little bit more interesting now than it was going to be back then, when what we were trying to do is do a major pivot away from a disastrous set of policies into something more effective. And now we're just saying, you know, we've started the recovery, things are moving in the right direction, but it's not going to be a quick and easy process.
Yeah, I mean, some people agree maybe we are moving in the right direction, but it's not enough. Do you think that President Obama has kind of lost the star power that he once had?
I don't think so. I mean, it's been really interesting to watch him over the last couple of months, you know, because as a person like me who watches politics all day long, every day, you do definitely hit the point where things get a little dull. And you know, President Obama is not dull, but certainly the slog of policy and the inside baseball, which is a lot of the Washington back and forth, can be boring. However, I think that in the last couple of months, he has just been flashing that smile, rolling his sleeves up, delivering punches. I actually personally think that he's really sort of found his footing again. He's ready to fight for the things he wants 4 more years to do, and he's certainly not going to take some entitled rich kid like Mitt Romney, you know, who can't even pay his own taxes and take his criticism sitting down. So I actually think it's going to start getting fun right about now.
All right. So, I mean, but I think it is pretty clear that that hope and change that he promised, there are a significant portion, there's a big part of America that doesn't believe that he actually delivered on that progress. So are you saying that he's just kind of, well, he's just saving all his energy and we're going to see it all play out in the coming months now that it's kind of crunch time?
Well, it's less that than it is that I think when there is a clear one person to counter to go point counterpoint with that, just by definition makes a much more interesting narrative or story for us to watch, is the interplay of Mitt Romney and Obama sharing the different views of how they want to take the country forward. That is more interesting and more fun than watching President Obama just consistently battle these Republicans, a lot of whom are just digging their heels in. You know, they want to do stuff like not raise the debt ceiling so that, you know, we default on our debt, and just a lot of sort of silly nonsense that any reasonable person watching is not going to get a lot of pleasure out of, because it just looks like Washington antics. Whereas now, with President Obama saying to Mitt Romney, you know, you're not the way that we need to go for the next 4 years, and I'm going to explain to you exactly how. I think this is going to start getting really interesting.
All right, and I mean, it doesn't seem like his rival there, Mitt Romney, exactly has this passionate following either. But what Mitt Romney does have is money, and a lot of it, a lot of backing from, you know, from the establishment Republicans. And after all, this is an election of record-breaking campaign spending. We're seeing the aftermath of Citizens United allowing corporations to pump unlimited spending into campaigns. I mean, you can see the graph there. I mean, enormous amount of money pumped into the election in 2008, and that number is only expected to increase this time around. How is that playing into everything?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, Mitt Romney is not a particularly interesting human being, much less is he going to be a particularly interesting candidate. His life story is sort of your average rich white banker story. You know, he came into his adulthood as the entitled son of a very prominent person. He bullied his way through college, and then he bullied his way over a bunch of companies that he bought, took out all the profits of for himself, and left the companies there to rot. And so this is just not a person who has a rich inner life. This is not a person who had any struggles growing up that you can relate to. So just he particularly is not very interesting. And I think when you combine that lack of interesting from him with a bunch of money, it doesn't make him any more interesting. It just means that you see more of a fundamentally uninteresting person. So there are, you know, the old expression, money can't buy you love. Well, I mean, I think we're seeing that played out really well right now. Mitt Romney, nobody ever really loved him, and they're going to keep on not loving him, and it doesn't really matter how much money you throw at the problem.
And certainly we've seen a lot of gaffes on his behalf that just show how out of touch he is with, you know, your average American. Do you think that Mitt Romney will be able to ever shake that reputation that he has, you know, and be able to at least appear to connect with, you know, everyday Americans?
And this is the thing about gaffes. You know, we hear this word in politics a lot, and I don't even think it's a word that very many people use in their regular everyday life. Gaffe is this political word that people use, and what they really should be saying is it's not a gaffe, it's just, oh, look, you know, the person just showed us what he really thinks. When Mitt Romney says, I don't care about poor people, I would argue that that's not a gaffe. That really is, Mitt Romney actually doesn't care about poor people, because I'm not sure that Mitt Romney has ever really met a poor person. And if he did meet that person, my guess would be that he would do the same thing he does in the rest of his life, which is act like it's their personal problem and that there aren't any things that we can do as a society to overcome it. And so Mitt Romney is not very interesting. You put a lot of money in there. He's still not very interesting. What you will see, though, is sometimes when you have these backdrops of uninteresting, you'll have some really fun pops come in. And so, for example, today, you know, there's been this back and forth on Mitt Romney and his Swiss bank accounts and his overseas accounts, and has he ever actually paid taxes in the last 10 years? And if he is, why is he so bound and determined not to even release a single full year of them? Well, today, Romney Girl, you remember Obama Girl, got about 120 million views on YouTube and in various media channels last cycle around, the girl who did the love song to
Oh yeah, we remember. We had her on the show. Definitely remember that. How can you forget?
we've got Romney Girl, who has hit the scenes today, and she actually is from Switzerland, and she was Mitt's secret Swiss banker when he was hiding his money in Switzerland, which we all know about from 2010, the little bit of the tax returns he has released. And so there's a great video of her on RomneyGirl.org. And so I think, you know, some little pieces of fun are going to pop in here, and I think really highlight for all of the people who are engaged in politics just the extent to which this is a candidate who doesn't share your values, who fundamentally doesn't care about poor people, who does think corporations are people. And all of these gaffes are not really gaffes, they're just a person, as Maya Angelou said. I think when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah. You know, we should say Mitt Romney, he does maintain that all these gaffes or whatever they are have been taken out of context. Who knows really what's going on there. But, you know, going back to that poll that we had mentioned earlier, the words that Americans are using to describe the campaign, at least as of now: boring, annoying, exhausting. I mean, but then on the other hand, you have candidates like Ron Paul and Gary Johnson, and they have kind of provided alternatives. And I mean, especially Ron Paul, we have seen this passionate and very loyal following, but they, of course, are out of the mainstream. Do you think, Erica, that it's time for a third-party candidate?
You know, this question comes up constantly. I don't personally think so. I think that there is a lot of work that we could do around some of the structure of our elections. So the national popular vote, for example, is an idea that is gaining a lot of steam in a lot of state legislative channels, state legislative chambers. What I'd like to see is some restructuring of the way that we elect people so that the Michelle Bachmans and these kinds of people in the world don't get the pop that they get just because they happen to have a devoted, albeit crazy, following.
All right. Erica, thank you so much for coming on the show and weighing in. That was Erica Payne, founder of the Agenda Project.